What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Games Up Podcast. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and I'm joined as ever by my best friend and trusty gamer, Lewis.
Your best friend. Hello there.
Yeah. We've done this for 5 years and many things before it. I'd say that's fair.
Okay.
I mean, if you'd like the position revoked, you're welcome. But
yeah,
how are
see
you,
where
man?
it's going. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
I mean, you will be having an IPR in February next year. Don't worry. But So, have you had a good week?
Yeah, it's been alright. I've been going back to some old games that I never fully completed. It's kind of my thing this week. Yeah.
Which ones?
I've been playing Bayonetta, as well as Witcher.
Right.
That's kind of it.
Sounds good. I've actually been doing the same. I went back to Arkham City this week. The
nice.
The HD edition.
I need to actually check it out actually, because I'm pretty sure I've got a HD edition now.
I mean, I was going to say, as a PC player, I imagine it won't be much different for you. But as somebody who it was my game of the generation last console, to have it on the Xbox One again is nice enough, but to have it on the Xbox One and see how shiny it is, and I do think it's a really good upgrade.
Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, so it's been a bit of a slow news week this week. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, a little bit.
There are some stories, but there aren't quite the heavy hitters that we'd expect. Obviously, we're lining up for GDC. So, Lewis, I believe you have our first story this week.
There's been a huge No Man's Sky update, adding lots of new features, vehicles, and graphical effects. Hopefully the player will appreciate it.
The one player that they have left.
The player, yeah.
Yeah.
Player. Because it's an interesting move, because I guess it's like... Usually you think at this point it would be cut and run time. Because it sounds like they're working quite hard on it, and I'm wondering if maybe it's because of Sony's funding that they have to do something.
I mean, especially with the silence that we've had since it came out, you wonder if is it just if they'd have come out and been upfront with it when it launched and before it launched, this might be salvageable. But at this point, with so little discussion about it and so little openness, is it too little, too late?
I think it definitely is, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, if you've already bought it, you can pick it up and give it a go, and maybe it could happen. But I don't know. It's a very interesting move, because you think it would be over at this point. You think they'd probably give up.
I mean, I have no reason to doubt that game in 3 years will be a far more robust game than it is now. It's just how much are they losing and wasting their time and efforts and resources by putting more into the game than just either cutting or running, or sort of taking their hands off and going, all right, yeah, we screwed this one up, and moving on to Project 2.
I mean, you've got to look at it Minecraft was very basic for the first year. And if they'd released it in that kind of model, maybe we'd be a lot happier about the game. There's so many... Well, Minecraft is always the example, but, a game that was... It's taken 10 years. 10 years? Oh, I don't know about that.
About that?
I don't know how many years. It's taken a good number of years anyway. From it going to the most basic state to the state it is now. And if this game had been released like that, then I think it would be probably very popular still. Maybe with the addition of multiplayer. But I don't know.
I think it's fair to say, we've said this from day one, and I think we'll continue to say it, that actually, in a way, one of the worst things to happen to that game was the kind of pressure and the spotlight that got put on it as a result of Sony's funding. Not necessarily that Sony's funding was bad for it, although I don't think it was good. I think it did have negative impacts. But I think the worst bit to come out of it was the expectations and the pressure that was ladled on top of the game when they showed it off, and the kind of hype they had to build around it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a primary example of how the hype chain can actually be damaging.
Yeah, very true. Very true. What's our next story?
Okay, so Rocket League has passed 10 million sales, um, and that's physical copies, and they've also got other players. They've got 30 million players at this point. Um,
Jesus.
yeah, I know.
That's
So
really impressive. Can we just take a second to say, well done? Like,
yeah, definitely.
from an indie darling to the kind of massive success it is now, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's also a great example of how how Reddit and YouTube and these kind of channels can be so good for a game like that.
There's a term that's called like influencer, and yeah, you're right. Rocket League is a perfect example of how influencers throughout various industries will like make something boom like that. So yeah.
Definitely. I mean, like I know for a fact that it was all over Reddit for quite a good amount of time, and I bought it probably because of Reddit.
Oh yeah,
You know, so yeah. So it's made by Psyonix, and if you haven't got it, maybe get it. Um,
definitely get it.
the Vice President Jeremy Dunham said as well that they're not going to be making a new one anytime soon, which is very interesting for this kind of game. Really, I mean, it's kind of they've basically said is that they build a huge community and they don't want to split that up and make a new one and kind of demand more money again.
Mm.
And it's really nice to hear because I think there's so many, and a perfect example is something like the new Star Wars Battlefront, where it's like you make a game and then it's like, oh well, we'll fix all of these problems in the next one, and there'll be another one 12 months after that, and there'll be another one 12 months after that,
And I mean, even worse than that, you're perfectly right with Star Wars Battlefront, because I reinstalled Battlefront recently, and I was going to turn it on and play it, and then I realised, oh, I don't have this DLC pack and the other DLC pack, and I don't really want the season pass. It splits the player base so strongly that it's just not worth it. And putting our cynical business hat on, the dream model for these kind of games at the minute is to build up a really focused community and then monetize the hell out of them. It's exactly what Overwatch is doing. It's exactly what The Division and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six are doing. And it's exactly what Rocket League want to do. So yeah, don't make another game. Don't waste those resources. GTA is a perfect example. Yes, keep us interested, feed us that content. And yeah, I'll be more willing to give you money because it's made that original purchase and that thing I bought into totally worth it.
Yeah, and I think GTA is actually like kind of the flagship example though of it working. As we discussed this week, it's still being bought in its tens of thousands and still being played every day, and yeah.
And I mean, it was so successful that they were developing a single player DLC. They talked about it extensively. And GTA Online model and the model that's now taken the market forward to some extent is so successful that they scrapped a DLC. Like, that's massive. You think about, like, Activision scrapping a DLC for Call of Duty or anyone scrapping a single player DLC, like any kind of single player DLC, that's a huge amount of resources to waste, but it's because this model works so well, arguably too well. So another piece of news that came out this week is that Destiny 2 is going to be a completely blank slate for the players going forward. So your progress and various things will not carry over, but that some kind of recognition for Destiny 1 players will. Whether it's maybe a special symbol or special items or some kind of special color scheme, there'll be something in there to recognize that you've played Destiny before, but not your progress. What do we think?
It's a bit disappointing. It's a bit disappointing because it's like, so the standard in these games is to release like what you'd call an expansion, but these days it's not really DLC. It will be like a significant chunk more of the game, and it could change everything, but you would still keep the characters usually. I don't know. That's really shocking because like usually if that sort of thing's done, it's like the game is entirely different, or the world is entirely different. The way things are entirely different, and I don't know if that's the case here.
I think like the technology that Destiny was built on has probably progressed enough that Activision wants to do something new about it. And I can totally understand the reasons why they would want to shift the entire player base to something new. But I think they're probably going to have a big issue of having a brick wall of basically having to sell an entirely new game to an engaged community. And in that situation, they're really going to test the model we were just talking about. I wonder whether Destiny 2 will have the success that Destiny 1 had. And if it doesn't, what Activision does. And if it does, how that affects I mean, really, this is going to affect Activision's business plan no matter how it happens. So it's going to be a pretty interesting game to watch develop.
It's another interesting thing, because obviously, like, Activisions are the ones that should know that, like, what's worked for, like, Warcraft. I don't know. It's an interesting move.
And our final piece of news this week is some information we got about Project Scorpio, Xbox's upcoming 6 teraflopping, 4King, VRing all in your face, do it all in one, the amazing box console that we've had talked about. The information that was released was that it will feature a 4K Blu-ray drive, which is something you'd expect considering it's on the One S. But the other interesting thing about it was that it will come with software which will be added to the entire Xbox console line. So when Scorpio releases, you're going to see efficiencies improved across all of the Xbox line. This is something we saw with PS4. They patched in HDR to all of their consoles, which is a pretty big thing to do and really a really good way to show support for those purchasers, those consumers. It's not a massive story. There's not a huge amount to talk about here, but it's just really interesting to know that actually the console, the Scorpio, whatever it turns out to be named or look like or whatever, is actually likely to hit this year. And it is likely, it seems like it's on track to be doing what's said of it. And actually, like, maybe this is going to be a bigger hitter than we thought.
I'm still very much in doubt about the 4K thing. Like, very much in doubt, but it depends. I mean, like, the price points where it's going to be, and we're hearing about it soon, I believe.
Before E3.
Yeah. I'm interested, because, like, the way they're talking about it, the price point's, like, way high. But I don't know. I mean, like, you know, like, they're very much stressing the whole premium aspect of it, which makes me think it's going to be like not your standard console. It's going to be expensive. But, you know, they said that it's the most powerful console ever created, which isn't necessarily saying much because it's the most recent console created.
Yeah, true.
But it is coming. So actually, Shadow of War, which just got a very nice gameplay playthrough. Of the first, or not the first, but of like 15 minutes of gameplay, and it looks gorgeous. Lots of exciting things for it, but it's been announced that it's one of the first games. It's going to be a launch title, I believe, on Scorpio. Which is good. And I think it's going to be beautiful on it.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really nice to see third-party support for the console actually, in a way, coming out before first-party support. We don't know what first-party Xbox games are coming out on this, but we do know that Shadow of War will be. So that is actually a really good sign. I hope we see more of it going forward, and I hope Microsoft has patched up a lot of the issues they've had with the One. Something that was really interesting was I listened to an interview with Phil Spencer this week on IGN's Unlocked. If you don't listen to Unlocked and you're interested in Xbox at all, you really should. Ryan McCaffrey and that whole team know exactly what they're doing. And they talked to Phil, and one of the interesting things Phil talked about is that there were inefficiencies deliberately built into the Xbox One to make it reach a certain time frame to have it out in time for the generational gap. Whereas this console, the Scorpio, has been part of the plans he brought in when he took over the role, since he took over the role. And so as a result, this is coming out at the right time rather than at a time. And so those inefficiencies have been plugged up. And actually, when you think about it, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I kind of like it as a design philosophy for consoles. Like, I kind of like the idea that PlayStation 5 and Xbox 2 or whatever come out when they're ready rather than at the end of a generation.
Well, I mean, there's always that problem, though, isn't there? I mean, maybe that's kind of one of the reasons for Scorpio is that like it will prevent there being a generational gap in the same way. Because like the problem is that like if Sony say, well, I mean they obviously can't now, but if Sony were like we're releasing a PS5, it's going to be like 10 times better. Not 10 times better, you know what I mean? You know, all of the games are now going to be in 16K. You know, like you know what I'm talking about. But the point is that you know the other side is forced to making something, and hopefully this will at least extend the console generation.
Yeah, I agree. I think the two companies and arguably Nintendo to some extent making the others play their hand is one of the things that keeps the console market fresh and keeps it ticking over, and that's really important, especially as consoles are selling better. But it is, in fact, a slow news week, and so it's from a discussion of one console that we must go to a discussion of another in our topic of the week. In the last couple of weeks, the Nintendo Switch has released, and in those last couple of weeks, we've seen all sorts of people playing it, using it, getting their daily wear and tear out of it. Now we have a better understanding of where the Switch stands as a machine, how it works, how it functions, what's wrong with it, what needs to be fixed, as is the case with every launch day console. So the question I want to put to you for our topic of the week, Lewis, is should you buy a Switch right now?
So I think at the moment, really, the answer is to wait. Myself. I mean, this is my opinion. So there's been some problems, some technical issues. Namely, like there's been one of the Joy-Cons apparently has syncing issues. It sometimes doesn't work. And then there's a few kind of hardware issues that are sort of screens getting scratched because of the docking area. And also the Joy-Cons breaking if you put them the wrong way around, put them in the wrong holders.
Yeah.
And Nintendo have come out and said there are no problems. Pretty much
everything is fine.
Everything's fine. Even though
perfect console.
The internet is sort of awash with bits of footage of things going wrong, and worst I've seen is like flickering screens and people having their Switch off, but it just making like loads of sound and some scary stuff. So I'm not sure. Like, it seems like there's big issues with it, and they're not admitting it yet.
Yeah, I've seen some definite horror stories with it. I've seen lots of people having blue screens of death with it. I've seen lots of people having it sort of shut down for no explicable reason. Obviously, the Joy-Con thing is a real issue. The screen scratching thing is a real issue. So I think maybe what we should do to start this is work through a bunch of those issues and what we think are the worst. Personally, I think the screen scratching issue is a massive problem. Are you aware of this one?
Yeah. I've seen lots of different things of like people being like, I put it in once and it looks like this now, or I've taken it in and out 10 times and it's already like in a terrible state.
So basically, for anyone who's not aware of it, what happens is when you put your Switch in and out, what you're doing is brushing it into the dock and brushing it out of the dock, and it's come to light that when you put it in and put it out, it's pretty likely to scratch the edges of the screen. Now, it's scratching the edges of the screen that are the bezels, so it's not scratching the actual display of the screen, it's scratching the frame at the side where the drivers are. But nonetheless, that will actually have an issue on the integrity of the screen and how well it holds up. If you drop a screen that's scratched, it's more likely to break. It's the same thing as a chip in a windscreen. It damages the integrity of it. And I think personally that's a really big issue because the whole reason people are buying the Switch is this gimmick of freedom of movement, is this whole open nature of it. And I think if using that alone is likely to cause significant issue with it, that's a problem. It may be as easily fixable as just buying some foam and sticking it on top. So it might not be an issue that actually gets in the way of using it if you're willing to work around it. But as a case study of the console, I think that's probably one of its most crippling issues.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering that these issues have come to light, like, so soon,
Yeah.
Like, something like that you would expect to be sort of ages before it became an issue. You'd expect to be hearing it after weeks, not after after months, not after just this short period of time. So it's kind of worrying, and it's worrying, especially that they've come out and said that this isn't a problem as far as they're concerned.
One of the other issues that the Switch is facing right now is the connectivity of the Joy-Con, as you said. So I believe it's the left Joy-Con that most people are having issues with. But the issue is that the Joy-Con works with a specific frequency of wireless connectivity. And it seems like this frequency is not made to work through things. So it doesn't work through flesh, for example, very well, which is a problem if you're holding the Switch too firmly, or your hands are very large and they create a larger area around the Joy-Con. But it also has issues around other wireless networks, and also if you're near an aquarium for some reason, it's causing massive issues with it. And again, this is one of those things where the Joy-Con are vital to the actual operation of the console.
Yeah, definitely. And I think these are big issues, and hopefully, I think what will happen is that there'll be another version of it. Not soon, but in the next year or two, there'll be a Nintendo Switch 2 that will fix all these issues and will work beautifully and maybe do all the things that they've kind of falling short of.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the thing is that considering the number of problems that people have experienced, this is sort of it appears to be a 1 in 1,000 thing as opposed to a 1 in a million. Not 1 in a million, but you know what I mean. The whole point is that it's not as rare as it should be.
No,
and that's not just the scratching of the Joy-Cons, but also the issue with the blue screens and the other stuff. There's a worry that kind of you have to wonder have they tested it enough?
It's funny that for a console that feels so premium, it seems to not be built incredibly robustly. It seems like there's a few issues with the actual industrial design of it and the programming of it. And the programming is more easy to fix. They can release patches and stuff. But it's interesting that the actual physicality of it, this is the console that feels like Nintendo's most premium console, potentially ever. And it's interesting that there's so many, glaring issues with it.
Definitely.
That being said, though, the console is $300, £300. When the PlayStation 4 launched, it was £500. When the Xbox One launched, it was £500. The console is priced more like a handheld. So, is it easier to sort of be willing to buy it more outright? Is it easier to take these issues and kind of appreciate that it is a lower price point and it's not necessarily is it worth buying into a console at this price point if you're willing to sort of say it will last me 3 and a bit years and then I'll have to get the next one?
Well, I always like to lag behind slightly on consoles. I always think it's the best way to do it because at the very least you can see how things are going, I bought my PS4 2 years after, 2 years? No, I bought it a year after. And it was worth it because you still get to play the exclusives, you still get to play those games, and it's now a better console, it's now got more content for it. I think in Nintendo's case, at the moment, there's a game, as far as anyone's concerned.
There's snipper clips. All right, there's snipper clips.
There's one true Switch.
I joke, but Snipper Clips is actually a really good game. But the selling point of it right now is Zelda.
And that's the thing. It's sort of, I saw a review of it that basically said it was £500. £500? I can't remember, but because of but then you've got to buy the game, and then you've got to buy.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
The Pro controller if you want to buy a controller for it, really. And then it's sort of. it's up there. It's sort of £400 before you're kind of playing Zelda. So while the reviews for it are amazing, for Zelda, it's whether the console will live to kind of have other games on it. I mean, like, there are games on it that, like, the people that are diehard Nintendo fans, or the people that are diehard, they've got the Wii, they've got the Wii U. There's a lot of games on the launch list that's not on the launch list, on the that are arriving in the next year that specifically are for those people really good. But there's not much on this that would attract, say, you and me, I believe, apart from Zelda and some of the other big ones.
Yeah, I've seen a few games in the coming months, specifically some indie stuff that I think looks really good. But you're right, the main tentpole games of this are angled at hardcore Nintendo IP fans, and then us as the wider audience of that, the Mario Odysseys and the Mario Kart 8s specifically. Personally, I'm really torn here. I really want a Switch. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it plays fantastically. Zelda looks frankly amazing. And I like the idea of sort of doubling down on it in time for when Mario comes out and when Splatoon 2 hits. But I just feel like there's going to be buyer's remorse. I really feel like I'm going to buy it. And within a few months, or by the time one of these games comes out, it's just not gonna have held up in the way I want it to. But equally, by not buying it, I feel like I'm kind of missing out on the cultural relevancy of these games. Zelda is going to be, it's amazing right now, and the chances are it'll probably be as amazing in a year, 2 years' time. But there certainly won't be as much of a conversation around it, and there certainly won't be as much of an opportunity for you to sort of join into the wider context and sort of say, yeah, I discovered this, or yeah, I was there when that happened. It seems odd to say that adds to the value of a console, but really I think it does.
I mean, yes, but I think Zelda specifically, like, it has a big pull, and I think it will still be talked about for plenty of time. If it's as big as the reviews lead me to think, I mean, a good example of something like that is like I can still see posts about Witcher. Witcher 3, and that's been out for quite a while now. So, I mean, it can still happen. The problem is that apart from that, that's my real issue with it. I mean, like, there's ARMS, the game that nobody wants. There's lots of games on this that I can just look at and go, like, who is buying this game?
Right, and this speaks to Nintendo's larger branding as a whole. Like, why the hell is ARMS not titled Punch-Out? Yeah. Why the hell is 1-2-Switch not titled WarioWare? Like, it's funny that for a while we couldn't get rid of Mario games. And now they're actually putting out things with new titles, and it kind of makes more sense for them not to.
Yeah, and I think, like, it just, I don't know. Like, my real thing is wait and see, because I think the problem with the Switch is if its capability kind of stops at, say, Skyrim, then are we getting is this console only really capable of playing old games? Which is okay. I mean, if it actually happens, I mean, it wouldn't be so bad if we can release, like, I don't know, Arkham City, as you mentioned earlier, on the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, exactly. You can take it anywhere. You can play Arkham wherever you go. But then, like, I don't know. When all the new games come out and all the fancy things happen, I mean, is the Switch going to be able to keep up?
I mean, personally, and I've said this from the day we kind of put our impressions out for it, I see Switch as more of a handheld than a home console, right? I'm gonna more engage with Switch when I'm out and about, when I'm on a bus, when I'm killing time away from my TV. And so as a result, like, I don't mind about the old games. I'd kill to take Arkham City on the road with me. I'd kill to take Skyrim on the road with me. But I'm with you as well. I think wait and see is the way to go. purely because we don't know the lifespan of a Switch yet. Purely because we haven't seen somebody's Switch die yet. We haven't seen like whether you're going to get 3 years or 12 months out of one of these. And right now the indication is trending more to somewhere in between than what you'd really want out of a £300 purchase. I think I know a whole bunch of people who bought it on midnight releases, and like, I understand buying into that hype, and I really understand being excited and capturing in the cultural conversation about it, but I don't think it's going to be long until Switch 2, and I think being an early investor to anything is always a risk, and being an early investor here it only seems to be paying off in gameplay. And that's great and that's wonderful, and gameplay is really what you need to get out of a console. Except gameplay is has to do a lot to make that £300 worth it. I think come E3, we'll have a better understanding of where the Switch is going, what it's doing, what its roadmap is. And I think that will play a much larger, much more fundamental part in defining what the Switch will be than Mario the first day out.
So you're expecting Nintendo to actually manage to do E3 in like a capable way?
Yeah. I mean we joke, but like that product launch for Switch hit the nail on the head, and the launch day sales for Switch seems to be hitting the nail on the head. Like, this is their E3 to lose, and it was a couple of years ago, and it's Microsoft's as well, and it's theirs, right? Like, between Microsoft and Nintendo, they are the people who have an uphill battle here, but one that can absolutely set them in the right stead. And if Nintendo do it well, then I'm in. If Nintendo would do it well and show me that the Switch is worth it and is trustable, then I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here. But just like I did with the Xbox One, just like you did with the PS4, if they sell it to us as the perfect most wonderful, amazing box ever, and there's reason to wait, then there's reason to wait. And right now, there's reason to wait.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, when everything's sorted and the next one comes out, and I think as you say, there will be a next one.
Oh, yeah.
And I think maybe soon, not soon, but you know what I mean, in the next coming years. Like, they'll fix these issues, and I think then it's with the time to buy one. I'm not certain about now myself. That's kind of where I am at.
Yeah, I agree. I think the conclusion here may be, should you buy a Switch right now? I think it's not right now, but probably eventually, yes.
In my opinion, I think they need to sort of just stop the I know the unique element of it is the docking thing, but in my opinion, it's a handheld.
Yeah.
And if they went, okay, well, we're gonna, make it a bit bigger, boost the battery life, then I'm happy. I'd buy one. But this whole docking thing is like, doesn't seem too useful to me. I don't know.
Interesting.
Well, especially because like. As far as, so people have, there's been lots of stuff about Zelda and lots of different comparisons about different games and different footage. And it seems that the console in general does worse when it's docked.
Yeah, and I mean, we that was something that we said in our impressions of it a couple of weeks ago.
And it's if it was just a handheld and, you could compare it to your iPad or whatever, then that's the perfect place, I think, is where it should be, instead of being kind of be on the same stage as PS4 and Xbox. I
kind of like it being a handheld on the scale of a home console, but I think you're right in that the place it's doing what it does best is as a handheld, is picked up, and the people I know who have it are saying that they're putting it in the dock to charge it more than anything else.
Yeah.
And they're playing it on the TV, as a way to charge it and take it away from the TV rather than as a way of playing it on the TV. So, yeah, I'd agree with you. I think if they lose the dock, they lose a bit of the unique IP of what it is, but maybe they need to design less for the dock and just keep it there as a kind of novelty part of. Maybe the actual console bit of it needs to be the novelty.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah. So I think that wraps us up fairly nicely. Our kind of general consensus is not right now. It needs a bit more time before we know properly.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Cool. So, Lewis, what will you be getting the opportunity to play this week?
So I'm still playing more Witcher. And probably will be for the rest of the time. How about yourself?
I plan to do a little bit more Arkham City.
Overwatch?
Yeah, probably. I haven't touched Overwatch as much as I'd like this week, but I did manage to climb some levels, like I said, so that's good. Getting back on that horse. Yeah, probably a bit more Arkham City, hoping to do a bit more Witness, probably some casual Guitar Hero stuff now and then, which we'll talk about sometime in the future, because I think there's some interesting stuff on that game and what it could do in the future. And then, yeah, Overwatch, as you said, probably as well. So trying to cram those 4 games in there somewhere.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it's been good.
I will see you next week.
You will.
And thank you for joining us. We always appreciate when you click and have a listen. If you've made it through this far, we would love you to make it through further on other episodes. So maybe consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss anything. And whilst you click and subscribe, click the little bell next to it and you'll see when we release one of these every week, Monday at 6:30. Whilst you're clicking on things, have a click on our Facebook page, have a click on our Twitter page. You get to see photos, posts, all sorts of things. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thanks for listening, and the game's up.